So before I start with Bayer, there's just one further matter in relation to Armour I wanted to mention briefly. Going back to the trial of heat-treated Factor VIII in 1983-1984, so that issue of the protocol that we saw with Dr. Ritzer identified as lead investigator, which we know was then stopped because of participants in the study developing non-A, non-B hepatitis. It might have been thought from what I'd said that the patients who developed non-A, non-B hepatitis were Oxford patients under Dr. Ritzer's care. In fact, such information as there is available suggests as follows, and I'm not going to put the document up on screen, but I'll give the reference. It's CGRA 40570, and it's the top of page 3. It's a document we've looked at earlier for a different purpose. That says a multi-centre UK trial of Factor VIII heat-treated was conducted in 1984. 2 virgin patients were admitted in Sheffield and 1 in Glasgow. All 3 developed non-A, non-B hepatitis. 2 had severe symptoms, and the 3rd exhibited markedly elevated ALT from 5.5 weeks to 4 months following dosage, but remained clinically well. The trial was stopped, and then the document, which is an Armour document, says, isolated reports have reached us since this date, indicating that virgin or minimally treated patients who've received Factor VIII heat-treated have developed raised ALTs or jaundice and have been diagnosed as having non-A, non-B hepatitis. So the specific patients whose the description of whose reaction seems to have led to the trial being stopped were either two Sheffield patients or a Sheffield and a Glasgow patient, and then broader reports of since the trial was stopped of further patients developing non-A, non-B hepatitis. I just wanted to clarify that before we now turn to Bayer. So I'm going to start with the corporate structure. Again, it's not easy to describe. There will be 4 principal names that come up in the documents: Bayer, Qatar, Miles, and Spaywood. Spaywood had, as we'll see in due course, an arrangement whereby it distributed the product produced by Qatar, Co8, for a period of time. That will become clearer both tomorrow and in the course of the Spaywood presentation on Friday. Bayer, Qatar and Miles are all related entities. There will also be reference from time to time in the documents to a company called Tuta, T-U-T-A, which manufactured blood bags. So to try and unravel them, I'll give the following by way of an introductory explanation. If we start with an understanding of an organisation called Bayer AG, that is a German multinational pharmaceutical and life sciences company, originally founded in Germany in 1863. It has a wide range of areas of business. Bayer AG is the ultimate owner of Bayer PLC, which is a UK-based company. And Bayer AG was, as we understand it, also at all material times, the parent company of Qatar Laboratories, Inc., and from 1978, the parent company of Miles Laboratories, Inc. Qatar Laboratories and Miles Laboratories were US-based companies involved in the manufacture of blood products supplied to the UK market. So that's Bayer AG. Turning then to the UK-based Bayer company, a company was registered in the UK in July 1968 called Bayer brackets UK close brackets Limited, and it was so known from 1968 to 1974. In 1974, it was renamed Bayer UK Limited without the UK in brackets. And then in March 1992, it changed its name to Bayer PLC. And as indicated, the ultimate owner of Bayer PLC is Bayer AG. We'll see, therefore, materials from time to time which refer to Bayer UK, with or without the brackets, depending upon the date of the document. By way of example, if we go to MHRA 309276, we will see here the grant of a licence in July 1976 by the Committee on the Safety of Medicines to an application made by Bayer UK Limited. And we can see the name there written in handwriting. Just to complicate the picture, the Coate product to which the licence related was distributed, as I say, for the first few years by Spaywood. And if we go to CBLA 606_011, we've got that CBLA 0000006_011. Yeah. Okay. Well, if we don't have, I can explain the document, and we can correct its absence tomorrow when we look at the licensing documents in more details. The document whose reference I've given, which for some reason we don't have to display, is a product license granted only a month after the one on screen, which is now granted to Spaywood Laboratories to distribute the same product, Coate, manufactured by Qatar Laboratories, Inc. in California. If we try this document, Shamik, BAYP 5020_051. No? No. For some reason, I don't think we've got the right documents available. Shamik, let me just try one other, and we can, because I can do. Do you have that one? Or? No. I can do most of this without looking at the documents for the rest of today. WITN 2988001. No. No, there isn't a different reference to that. I'm sorry, so we don't appear to have the available documents for display. Let me just spend a few minutes outlining the corporate structures, because I can do that, I think, without showing you particular documents. And then we can ensure that we've got the right materials tomorrow. And if I need to go back to any of the actual documents for the purposes of demonstrating what I'm talking about, we can do so then. But it'll make the best use of time now. So the close relationship between these various entities is illustrated by the fact that in 1976, Qatar Laboratories International write to Bayer UK Limited, thanking them for pursuing an application for a licence on behalf of Qatar Laboratories, which is a licence granted to Spaywood. So really the important thing about all these companies at this point in time is whatever name appears, they are an associated group of companies. With the Spaywood is separate in terms of the company relationship. But there are Miles, Bayer and Qatar are all associated groups of companies which are dealing with the manufacture and distribution of Coate. That's the principal product with which we're concerned. There'll be some other products which I come on to. The contract with Spaywood to distribute Coate was terminated in around 1980, and we'll hear more about this potentially on Friday. But for a period of time, Speyward continued to distribute Coate, but they distributed it under a different name, Humanate. So they imported it from the US and sold it as Humanate. We'll also see the name of Bayer UK appearing on various documents later in the 1980s. Bayer UK become, for example, the distributor for heat-treated Coate in 1988, although the product license is in the name of Miles Laboratories Limited. And then from 1990 onwards, Qatar products are imported by Bayer UK in place of Miles Limited. So we have this relationship with Bayer UK with its various different name changes, and then in the UK, Miles Laboratories Limited and Qatar Laboratories Limited. They are effectively sister companies. Qatar Laboratories Limited, as a UK company, was established in, I think, 1979. The US manifestation of Qatar was Qatar Laboratories Inc., which was acquired by Bayer AG in 1974. Qatar Laboratories Inc. in turn had been originally founded in the States in 1897. So that was one company involved in the manufacture of blood products in the States. And a lot of the license documents that we'll look at tomorrow identify the manufacturer as Qatar Laboratories. After Bayer acquired Qatar Laboratories in the States, it also acquired a company called Tutor UK Limited, which supplied blood bags in the UK, and the name of Tutor was changed to Qatar Laboratories Limited. So that's the UK Qatar company, and that explains why there will be some documents which refer to Tutor. And again, we'll see as we go through, when we get to 1980, we see product license applications in relation to Coate being made by Qatar Laboratories Limited, and it's Qatar Laboratories Limited which is granted the license, the product license in relation to Coate in the early 1980s. We then have Miles Laboratories. The American company Miles Laboratories Inc. was purchased in 1978 by Bayer, and Bayer therefore became the ultimate parent company of Miles Laboratories Inc. and then the UK branch, which was Miles Laboratories Limited, which was established in 1946. And then in the early 80s, there's a degree of rationalisation and merger between the companies. Miles and Qatar in the US merge, and Qatar Laboratories Limited in the UK is acquired by Miles Laboratories Limited in the UK. There's a document we wouldn't need to go to it even if we could, but I'll give the reference for the transcript, BAYP 0004280, and page 4 of that document, which are the minutes of a board of directors of Qatar Laboratories Inc. in the States in November 82, talks about Qatar and Miles having combined to form a single business with the critical mass necessary to compete successfully in the healthcare market. And we see then, if we look at what was happening in the UK, a meeting taking place around the same time, autumn of 1982, between the Department of Health and representatives of Qatar Laboratories Inc. and Miles Laboratories Inc. to talk about the practicalities of transferring responsibilities for Coate from Qatar Laboratories to Miles Laboratories. What we will then see quite often on the documents thereafter is Qatar Laboratories described as a division of Miles Laboratories Inc. in the US. And a lot of the documents will say Qatar division of Miles as a result. We then, I think, get to a point in time, I think it's 1983, but we can check when we look at the license applications tomorrow, when the product license begins to be held by Miles Laboratories Limited rather than Qatar Laboratories Limited. But it's still the same product. We're talking about Co8. And certainly there's a product license grant to Miles Laboratories Limited, August of 1983. And then, again, I'll pick it up as we look at the licensing applications tomorrow. The close relationship between these various entities is apparent when we look, for example, at a product license application for the heat-treated version of the Factor VIII concentrate, Co8HT. Miles Laboratories Limited in the UK is responsible for packaging and labelling. It's the product licence holder. The product is described as manufactured by the Qatar division of Miles Laboratories, Inc. in the US. And then there comes a point in time, I think it's in the late 1980s, where the trading name effectively, or the way in which the organisation is described, is then Qatar Biological, described on one of the product licenses as a trading style of Bayer UK Limited. So none of it, I think, particularly matters for the purposes of the issues with which you are concerned. But I hope that helps explain why we will look at documents at different times, and they'll all be about Co8, or sometimes they'll be about Co9, the Factor 9 product. And they might say Bayer, they might say Qatar, they might say Miles, they might say 2 or 3 of those names at any one particular point in time. But we're talking essentially about companies which had relationships with one another and ultimately were owned by Bayer AG. So that's what I wanted to say about the corporate structure. In a statement that we have from the head of legal and compliance at Bayer PLC, Mr. Wilkinson, and again, I'll just read the reference into the transcript. It's WITN 2988001, as well as giving a detailed account of these various companies and their relationships. He has set out in the statement his understanding of Bayer PLC's archiving system and document retention policy, and he explains why there were certain documents that had been retained, not least because of litigation. He describes how there were documents that had been held by law firms acting for various incarnations of the corporate entities at different points, and explains how all material identified as relevant was then drawn together and identified to the inquiry in the form of a schedule. So that's why we have documents that we'll often see with the URN BAYP for Bayer. They've been provided to us through that route. More often than not, they're actually Qatar or Miles documents. So in view of the fact that we don't have any further documents to display, and the fact that I'm going to go on to look at the licence application for which we do need the documents, I'm going to suggest that we have a slightly early finish and sort out the documents overnight so that we can start again with Bayer's licensing at 10 o'clock tomorrow.
Right, well, let's do that. Thank you very much. So it's 10 o'clock tomorrow for more about Bayer, Qatar, Miles and Spaywood.